Oh, hello there, Outliers. Niiamah Ashong here. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of your journey here. We have an incredible roundtable set up for you. It's me and Maiya Holliday, and we're going to dive into the things that brings Maya and the way that she does business out in the world a as an outline fashion. And I'm really excited to explore more about you, Maya, see how you're thinking about things. I think you have like some very counterintuitive beliefs I think that that's like really what we're looking for and searching for. So I'm glad that you're here. Thanks for making the time for it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Well, Maya, let's get started here. The way I like to start every conversation is with an exploration of like the game that you're playing right now, right? And like I don't mean like tennis or anything like that. Sometimes people are like, "What do you mean by that?" You mind letting us know more about you and the game you're playing?
Yeah, so I run a digital agency. We do website design and development. It's called Mangrove Web. And I started in 2009, so it's 16 years in now. We became a certified B Corp in 2016. I was just thinking about it this morning, realizing that's coming up on 10 years and not so long as well. But it feels like we've been running kind of a purpose-driven business since the get-go. We do a lot of work for nonprofits, purpose-driven organizations, and small to medium businesses who really are looking to use their digital presence to expand their impact.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. Thanks for doing the work that you do. We got a chance to connect beforehand. I was like, it really hit me like in an awesome way. All right.
Mhm.
So you said this in 2009. Like what's going on through my mind is that in 2009, we were like really in the throes of like an economic downturn, at least in the States here. And so I want to get a sense. I want to get a sense of you through that lens here. So
Mhm.
at that time, like there was a great recession taking place, and you're like, this is a wonderful time to start something new, right? So do you
Yeah.
mind taking us to that real quick?
Yeah, I feel like I kind of took this, like skirted the whole thing somehow because I actually started my business. I was working for, if you take it back like a step before, I studied international development. I came out of college thinking that I wanted to do something in public health or something in public policy. I wasn't sure what my angle was, but I wanted to do something that felt impactful. And I couldn't really find my groove until I started out of college working for an organization that did a nonprofit that did trips to Thailand and Tanzania doing HIV/AIDS education. So I worked there, did a million different things as you do at a nonprofit, and one of them was working on their website. That seemed interesting. I taught myself how to code and kind of learned just a lot of late nights Googling and started taking on a couple little side projects. Fast forward 2 years, I had convinced this guy who was starting a little website arm of his IT business that I convinced him I knew what I was doing. Apparently, he saw some future that I wasn't too clear on yet, and learned a ton there. And so in 2009, when I started Mangrove, I actually had just quit my job there. I'd worked there for almost 2 years, couldn't sit in an office anymore, just needed to do something different. And I moved to Panama for 4 months. And Mangrove was born when I was in Panama. I was living off of nearly nothing. I was actually staying at a friend's hostel. We had done a trade to do their website. And so I had like a couple small clients and was living really cheap and kind of create like just started it as like a little side project to see if I could do it. And so we just really built up organically over time. But I feel like by doing that, I actually almost like skipped the recession in a way because I didn't need that much to keep me going at the time.
Yeah, so this is really I love this now because like the time of this recording, we're about like 16 years into
Yeah.
the business, right? Which is really fun, like really cool. Kudos to you on it. Um, and what I love about this is like you started it your way, all right? It wasn't like it needed to be loud. It wasn't like I need to have this whole thing. You're like, I'm in Panama. I can live I have a budget as to what my life could be like. And now is a great time to get something started with that. Am I getting that right? Let me not put like too much anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it felt very organic. It was like
Mhm.
I could just test it out a little bit. I've heard I've grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, so it was very natural for me to kind of step into the space of running a business. But at the same time, it felt really low risk at the time. I was able to just try it out, and I was like a decent, yeah, I was a decent web developer at the time. Like when I first started, I mean, I taught myself, so I didn't know anything. So I never even knew how much I knew, to be honest. I was just learning
Yeah,
as I went along, and everything keeps changing, so you keep learning. So um but yeah, I don't even remember kind of starting it per se. It was just
yeah.
like I was dabbling, and then it just grew over time. And obviously with intention as it grew in order to actually be a viable business. But I really kind of forged the path every time we got to a different growth point. Um, we figured our way through it and have gone through many iterations and landed here.
I love it. I love it. So like you said you landed here. Tell us a little bit more about like where our Mangrove Web is now.
Yeah, so right now we're about 15 people. About half of those are full time. Always operated with a whole kind of team of part-timers, especially devs and quite a few people in different countries. And and we have a headquarters in the US and in Canada. We actually merged with another B Corp firm 3 years ago now, who are located in Canada. So we have a Canadian headquarters, US headquarters, and then an international team who are in Spain, Bosnia, Argentina. Um, who am I forgetting? Turkey, US, and Canada.
Yeah, I'm just like inside as you're saying this here. My inside is like throwing like this parade, right, for you here, right? Or like because it felt like because the way you describe it is like it just started like some really humble beginnings, and you're just like, yeah, like we can just do it, and then you allowed it to keep coming. And Outliers, like I'm gonna just kind of put this into this space right here. Like what is that thing that you're thinking might be too humble, might be too like just something you're doing on the side that like if you continue to give love, attention, and intention to could grow into something that that continues going out in the future. In fact, Maya, like you've actually lived this process here. Like what would you say to anyone who might find themselves, let's say, like where you were in the first couple of years in the journey?
Um, I mean, this maybe isn't great advice, but it's something to pay attention to if it's there. Is like if you're trying to solve a problem that you're just kind of obsessed with solving, or you're working on something that you're just so passionate about figuring out, then if you can create a business out of that, that's awesome. Like I feel really lucky because I started working on websites as like kind of one of many jobs within an organization, started learning it and realized like I really like I would stay up till 3 in the morning just like obsessively trying to figure out problems, like spending time on Stack Overflow and Googling things. And um a little shout out to any web devs out there who used to do
Yeah.
that. And like for me, it was like it was motivating and inspiring to just keep figuring things out.
Mm.
And so I feel like lucky that that happened to align with something that was actually really kind of useful and lucrative. I think that it's not always easy to create or cultivate that, but maybe the kind of word of wisdom is to try to find something like that where it's like the amount of enthusiasm I had for what I was doing like far outweighed anything else I could have kind of like forced myself to do. And so if you can find those threads at all and then like align that with something you're doing, whether it's your own business or working with someone else, it's really powerful. Just that problem you just have to solve.
All right, so now I like this here. I think it's really it hits me pretty well.
Mhm.
I want to ask you about like what's like coming alive for you nowadays? And I'm probably gonna ask this in two different capacities. One of them will be on the client side, and the other one is like you have 15 people who are working with you. Like, what is it like leading the organization now? So like, 'cause I can imagine in the beginning it was I'm staying up till 3 to do code, and now I don't know what your days look like, but like I can imagine you putting your attention in different areas. So why don't we start with the clients first? And like, if you don't mind, like I'm really like
Yeah.
I'm trying to see your world here. So like, so what excites you? What's those things that like really gets you about your clients right now? And if you can either say it generally, or if there's like one client right now that's coming to mind, or a project that you had recently that might help make it real for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our whole mission is basically to support change makers to do better work or to amplify their work. And so that's why I named the business Mangrove, is because the mangrove root system really houses all of these creatures that kind of grow and thrive from within it. And so
Mhm.
I get really fired up when we're working with a client and we see pathways through to solve problems that they just don't see or didn't think were possible. Like we were recently working with a client where we're doing a website build. There's a lot of like the current site is very kind of disorganized. There's not a whole lot of like it just feels like things are kind of all over the place and that they've grown in that way over time. And you can tell that the client's really overwhelmed by that. And we had a discovery session with them, and I felt like we were, Marie Kondo coming in and saying, like, look, we can create containers in this closet that are labeled and that have structure and organization, and there's like a place to put everything, and then that feels really good, and you feel like you actually can build from there, and that there's all these tools we have to solve the problems that you're telling us, and it seemed really it's one of those times where it like seemed really basic and obvious to us, and I think we always take that for granted to some degree because we're often surrounded by people who are in our industry who are also experts in this space or who always think this way or do this. And I have to remind myself, like when I talk to my accountant, a lot of the things they're doing are just like very basic, but the fact that they can actually tell me really directly how something can and should be done with authority and with thoughtfulness and intention and strategy, like that's really valuable, even if it seems very basic to them. And so I get excited when I see kind of when I'm reminded of um the value that we can bring to create not only like order and organization, but also that's like the basis for creating more impact and creating more impactful storytelling. Like there's so many branches and tangents that can come out of that, but I come from a coding background, so I'm like, I want all of your data and information to be in this like solid base. I want you to be able to tell your story in a really um involved in an elaborate and genuine way, but I also want you to know that's on this really solid structure so that when you need to find that again to reference, or when you need to connect it to something else, or when you need to share it with someone or track someone's like path through your website, like that's all really dialed. And then that can free you up to do other work.
Yeah,
So
there's something in this that I'm really enjoying as well, which is like I can see like the sparkle in your eye as
mhm,
you're saying it. Um and the element of like the something that's basic. That's been something that's been running through for me a lot recently,
mhm,
where I used to be really tempted by complexity. Like the more complex I can make it, the better the solution, you know? And there's been a real pull to just bringing things down to simplicity recently. I think it's because of the two kids. And as a result of that, like the work has gotten a lot better, you know?
yeah.
Uh, and so
Yeah,
again,
if I can jump in, like you have to be so much more discerning to make something clear. Like you have to take everything in the system into account and then whittle it down really intentionally. You can't just like start with this small subset. Like usually you're starting with this enormity of things, and then you actually need to streamline and focus. And it's like, I mean, the classic example is like the Apple website. It's so quote basic, but it's not. It's like that for like they went through however many design iterations and UX iterations to make it like that. And every single tiny thing on there, every single even bit of white space is like is by design. And but you don't realize it's good design because it just feels right. And so that's kind of that's the skill that I think is sometimes overlooked when there's things that are kind of like not structured in a good way, or design isn't really thoughtful, or kind of the way a user moves through something isn't really calibrated. It's like you just feel like there's a little bit of friction and you don't know why. And I think that's like this underlying piece of really good kind of strategy and design and development that sometimes clients don't understand or worked into the whole process, and that's like why you come out with something great. Like it takes all that input and then kind of streamlining it and really making some like creating something really intentionally as an outcome.
So I'm gonna riff off this if you're good with it,
Yeah,
because
go for it, go for it.
there's a few things in here, Maya, that are like making my heart sing. One of them was just like you said something that had a hard time like kind of pinpointing, which is like you said something to the effect of like, in order to bring something to like to figure out like what makes it like its most simple or its most basic, or what actually needs to be there, you need to take into account everything. You need to take in more inputs in order to find out what stays and what doesn't. Um, and I smiled at that because I was trying to figure out a way to describe it. I've been hiring some people to come help me support me inside of the organization, and there's something about it where I'm like, I want to just give you like a task. I want you to do this here, but at this point, I don't think you can see the system enough to know what actually should stay, what shouldn't. Like,
Yeah.
I could almost imagine it being like the website you were describing beforehand, where it's like, well, let's just take care of this one small thing, and we'll figure it out later on. And eventually, you realize that like, oh, what we built like isn't cohesive enough for us to be able to keep building on it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I've actually found, I mean, one thing that's been kind of interesting about this whole AI movement is I feel like one thing that's really cool is some of the, voice generated like memos and things like that, like actually taking a lot of scattered ideas, whether you're just brain dumping them or whether it's like a more kind of complex and structured system, but actually distilling it down and getting like um kind of generated notes out of something that's like we record often I record calls with my business partner and have like AI generated notes taken from it and then actually distilling the concepts down. I feel like it's kind of a parallel experience where then you can take that and like take out the pieces of it that really like showed up a few times, but you don't have to have them in three different disparate places doing different things. Like you can actually just synthesize. Um, but but yeah, I mean, I think sometimes you just have to like really throw spaghetti against the wall and like brain dump and just like you're not going to be able to pick out what the clear priorities are unless you kind of like put everything out there. And I think as I've had exactly the same experience of being like, man, there is so much context that I just didn't think I knew, but is really in me, and it feels like common knowledge, but guess what? It's not.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it's cool here you say this here because I'm thinking about outliers as you're talking. I'm thinking about different outliers as we go in, and the thoughts that are going through our mind are how many of us have our experiences in life, and like through that have taken us in so many different directions, lived in different countries, worked in different organizations, tried on different projects, led different, so on and so forth. And like when we sit back, we're like, I'm not sure how to make sense out of all this here. I'm just a multi hyphenated, XYZ,
right.
and there's something about what you just said there, Maya, that like I feel like you just planted like the right kind of seed where it's like, okay, that take all that and now let's see like how can we streamline, how can we simplify, how can we like what's the signal and all of the noise that is
Mhm.
there so that you can continue to grow through it. And so I know we were talking about like design of like sites here, but I
Yeah.
also know that we were talking about design like in general, like how you can really create something amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of applications of that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate it. I appreciate this part of the conversation. So let's take things on the other side. So we were talking a little bit here around your client side of things. I want to get into like what are the things like now in the position that you have running your organization, like what are the things that like light you up in that? What are the things that like
Mhm.
now you're like, oh, this is the challenge that makes this like worthwhile or interesting.
Um, yeah, I mean, like I was on a call earlier with um some with my dev team, and we're kind of working on this tool together that's really solving a problem that's like been a major annoyance for like a decade. And it's one of those things, it's just like moving content into a site. And it's one of those things where it's like, I can't believe it's 2025 and we still have to copy paste things, but they're just there's different tools out there, but they kind of just don't do exactly what we need them to do. And we've tried to solve this, and it's just like this kind of agonizing thing where it feels so inefficient. But it's just how it is. And we're at this space right now where one of my devs is really leading the charge in actually building a solution for this now that we're doing some sort of like AI driven app development to create our own tools to solve some of these problems. And we're actually in solving the problem, like you have to identify the problem really clearly. And so we're kind of like dissecting it together and working backwards and understanding like what all the edge cases are and how this is used and how clients are going to be able to use this and how we're going to be able to use it internally and what happens when this happens. Um and just creating more fluidity in like our systems so that we can spend more time doing more strategic work, but then actually creating this thing together is really fun and exciting. So I'm seeing a little bit more kind of inspired like middle management emerging right now, especially around um experimenting with things like in this age of AI and all that. It's really opening up space to kind of think about solving problems differently. And I'm like seeing people who do have the context, like you were saying, trying to hand certain things off. Like these, what I'm excited about is like these are people that actually know these problems so well and even have their own input on them because they have they have a deeper perspective on certain aspects of it than I do. And then I can kind of come into that conversation and give a little bit of an outside perspective. Or, I mean, I've definitely been spending some late nights vibe coding myself and trying to build things and figuring things out, which is like a real blast from the past. But um, just kind of like seeing this like shared enthusiasm and collaboration around strategically solving our own problems, which then will kind of speed up and kind of enhance the way that we're able to deliver to clients and kind of free us up for more strategic work and less kind of rote execution.
Yeah.
So I think that is cool. And like I'm seeing a lot of like cross department collaboration in that way too, where design and dev are kind of as things are getting like automated and shifting, and there's a lot of different nuance changes going on, but they're almost like becoming closer together. And so I see a lot of collaboration of like aligning things between departments to like make things flow better. And I just see a lot of like really deep perspective on our work and thoughtfulness around like how to make it better so that we can deliver better work for clients and um, hopefully make a little bit more breathing room for ourselves too.
Nice. I think if I didn't ask this question, I would like leave this conversation like kind of kicking myself. So like in
Yeah.
which ways are you seeing like design and dev like coming together? Like when you said it, I was like, oh, this is
Mm,
really like it's fascinating to me. So I have to ask.
yeah. I mean, one good example is just like Figma has variables in it now. And so there's um there's a lot of different ways that we can align kind of the output from design with how like we build in a really modular building block system with a lot of like design customization on it. But the designers are realizing like as we create ways to kind of streamline the way that things move from design to dev, the devs are giving feedback to the designers like, hey, I always need you to standardize the way that like this information is in the file so that it's system readable when we send it over there. So it's just like there's variables that are set where you can actually we've actually created kind of our shorthand of moving those variables into like the front end coding files from Figma. But there's also like all these building blocks where if we name them exactly the same way in the wireframes and then we name them exactly the same way in the design, we're actually using that infrastructure um, in order to like build out all the blocks. Like we're creating a system to automate our own work with human interaction in between, but to ensure that all of these elements are kind of standardized and that like what's in design and the hierarchy of the headers and the things like that. We want to preserve that when we get to the content phase. We want that to be in the HTML because it's good for accessibility and SEO. So if we're doing that over here in the design file, like can we prevent ourselves from doing it again here and again here? Um, and, for the dev side, I think there's just always a movement towards like user experience and like really having more involvement in the strategy and design phases so that they're really thoughtful in the way that they're building the site output and making sure the client can use it really easily and that like the marketing manager can spin up new pages that do XYZ and are like connected into their Google Tag Manager. And when someone is it annoying when someone has to like add a block like this? And can we put helper text in there that's just like right in there and easy to see? Just stuff like that. Just like think about like the actual user experience when you're building something.
It's so funny to me because as you were talking, I was like recognizing how much of me was getting excited by the conversation. Like I was like,
Yeah,
what is like what like what is he saying? That is
I know. I'm like, I hope
that
you have some design and dev nerds on here who are
well
excited
yeah,
about listening to all this.
but like the fun thing about like having this group of outliers is that like we've just seen and experienced so many different things. Like we've lived so many different lives that and I think there's a part of us that like have a skill set of being able to understand without having to like haven't actually experienced, right? And so
Hmm.
like some of the things that were like really driving me was I was like, oh yeah, the module like you found a way to both systematize and continuously improve a modular system, right? While also getting together like things that almost seem obvious, like, oh, like why wouldn't we have a more consistent way of saying things here?
Right.
But you're but that's not how it goes. That's not how it's been. And like now there are different types of inroads that are bringing people in higher levels of alignment than beyond. So as you're talking, my background's in like diversity and inclusion. I used to love
Mhm.
seeing like different functions of an organization come together where they used to be in
Yeah.
different silos and then find ways like knowledge sharing is just really big for me. And then like
Yeah.
the organizational infrastructure to be able to let that go in. I might be geeking out a little bit around this here, but like
No.
this is there's something about this here where I can see the value that it brings to both internally, but I'm also getting a sense as to like okay, these are the things that you don't even know to be thinking about when you're like running your own organization. You're out there making your change out in the world, and you're not
Mhm.
able to like think about like, all right, where are all these um areas where like there could be so much more synergy taking place, and what would it be like to have someone be able to like do the like this is better like this is probably me talking about like
Yeah.
do the thinking for me. I was like, can I
Yeah.
trust you to do the thinking for me? Because like I know what needs to get done, what it needs to look like, kind of.
Yeah.
Like obviously your point where you're talking about like there's something that's off and I just don't know what the fix is with the site.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I
sometimes
just
it's
need to
just
get
seeing like the path or seeing the alignment from a different perspective. And I think that's what's really cool is like obviously the things we're creating are exciting, but like when people are moving closer towards understanding each other's work and thinking really broadly about like what the client experience is and realizing like we're not all siloed in our different spaces and just handing something off like a baton, like we're actually doing this thing over here so that it makes like someone's job easier down the line and then it just like creates more consistency and like we're all and some of it seems like so absurdly obvious but it's very easy for that to not naturally happen. And I mean, I'm a pretty organized person and we've been working at these things for decades, right? But um, things keep changing. And so, how adaptable is everyone? How open is everyone to shifting their practices while like flowing in the same direction? Because
Yeah.
I think that's like a huge challenge in our industry and in a lot of other industries that have been shape shifting a lot is how do we actually keep this alignment without the rigidity? Because you have to, it's like, I don't know, like a flock of birds or something. You can't, you have to stay connected, but like you can't stay still.
Yeah.
And you're not, flying in a straight line in a container.
Yeah, like as you say this about like what's coming to mind is one, it just occurred to me how much in this conversation it feels like you and AI are in partnership
Mhm.
with another there's opportunity that I see that you're leaning
Yeah.
into there and it feels really open, expansive and creative. You know, at the same time you're talking about like uh change. I'm thinking about right now, like with the at least at the time of this recording, like the macroeconomic environment in the US, like the just multiple parts of our environment in the US.
Yeah.
And I think the word uncertainty is probably the right word what I'm experiencing in this time.
Mm.
And I'm thinking like in 2009, you're like, I was able to sidestep all that. Like,
Yeah.
like that one just passed me
Well,
by.
it's been a little bit harder this time around.
Yeah. So, I'm wondering here for anyone who's like for any change makers that are listening to this in various portions of their organizations, like what have you seen like work really well for some of your clients or some people who are navigating this time and like they have work to get done and
Mm.
their stories likely even more important right now as different stories are being selected as to what gets amplified and whatnot. So I'll be curious
Yeah.
to see how you working with your clients and how that's showing up.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nuanced like question for sure. There's a lot of different angles of it. Part of it is we're at a point in our organizational sort of evolution that we can't do really tiny projects anymore. And so sometimes the answer is there's an organization that is doing something amazing and what they actually need is not that complicated. And so we make a referral to smaller organizations that are exactly where I was 10 or 15 years ago. And they get supported, and we're able to just connect the dots really. Um, for larger organizations that have more of like an ongoing investment in their website and in their digital presence, like it's really about making the most of whatever they have on hand and really like reevaluating what the priorities are and reestablishing like what the focus is. And so um, with AI changing so rapidly, we haven't gotten really deep into this with clients just yet, but we're kind of figuring out how we want to approach this and connect. But there are so many opportunities that I see that are a little bit tangential to like kind of the website itself, where there's alignment around the way that clients like organize their data so that they can better read, what's going on with their users and connect to certain groups in a more targeted way. Or there's maybe it's just having like some layer on their website, whether it's like a chat bot that's voice activated where someone can, you know, be getting information from the site while they're in the car speaking to it rather than be navigating it. Or um, kind of connecting up different systems that maybe are outside of the site and ensuring that there's no like redundancy in information and that everybody's able to access the the stories that have impact so that they can use them for multiple different cases. And so I think it's a lot of it is just a matter of like taking a little bit of a step back and saying, okay, if you need to reduce your budget, or if you need to, work towards a certain outcome or whatever it is, like what's the lowest hanging fruit? What's the most valuable thing we can do to get there? And sometimes it's not really the shiniest thing. And um, like we may bring different perspectives in like how we might get to that place, but um I think that there's so much opportunity of what can be done in technology right now. It's also kind of back to that concept of whittling it down. It's a matter of like what's really, really worth focusing on. And um, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. And it means you have to get just really clear on like what the ask is and what the problem is. And so I think that the best thing we can do is just like dig like one layer deeper with clients and kind of like get rid of some of the assumptions, or maybe we've gotten into our own patterns of what we're creating and what their needs are, and actually kind of like just like dig things up a little bit and shake them around and kind of reassess what's important, because everything's changing, like social media strategy is changing, and AI driven like tool um opportunities are changing, and the way the API integrations are changing, and donor management is changing, all these different things. And so and the other thing is just being like radically transparent. I mean, if I always like in initial calls with clients, like try to be really clear about what budgets are, like what are we working with here? I'll tell you if we can do it or if we can't. I can't do something that's in a smaller budget because I can't take care of my team. I can't pay the people that do the work, and I can't we need to run a viable business and do well and do good work. And I don't want anyone to feel stretched either way. And so part of it is just being really realistic and transparent about like what the need is, what the budget is, like whether there's alignment, if there isn't, like making a really thoughtful referral. If there is, be clear about like what we're working with, and we can figure out what fits in there, and if it really is a valuable project to do together, and if there's like, you know, opportunity for really good collaboration. So,
I love this here. There's this it's been an absolute pleasure having this conversation, Maya. I thank you so much. You've gotten me to think through a number of things, both from a design perspective, a simplicity perspective, um, interestingly enough, like a passion perspective. Like I used to be like someone that's like, oh, like passion is coming through, but like you really
mm,
reconnected me with that. And then even here in just this last part of the conversation, just like in the actual elements of like how can we come together to actually build something that can work for you. And there was
mm,
just something really lovely in the um in how like you've created a thing where you're like, look, we can only take on projects that are of this size or of this magnitude here. And I think that that's like a really I want to kind of just make sure I double click on that just a bit here, Outlier. So think about that for yourself.
mm.
Almost like how do you create that problem for yourself such that like you're it is what it is. It is what it is. And
Yeah.
I feel like that really comes through naturally here. Maya, I want to make sure that anyone who wants to go deeper down the journey with you can do that. Can you let us know the best way for us to stay in contact or to work with?
Yeah. So you can find our website at mangrove-web.com, mangrove like the trees. And my name is Maiya Holliday, Maiya, and Holiday with two L's. There's only one of me in most places I've found. So you can find me mostly on LinkedIn and our website. And yeah, connect with me. I'd love to meet any outliers that are listening.
I love this. Yeah, I love like there's only one of you. Like that's like such an outlier statement. I love it. I absolutely love it. All right, so we're gonna wrap up here. Outliers, I like to end these things here to make sure that this conversation we have is not just here to stay between just the two of us. My ask is that you go and you share this out with your world. You do this in two ways. One, make sure that your world knows about it. If you hear it and there's something that really sticks out to you, go and share what stuck out to you out with your people. And if there's anyone in particular that you feel like would really benefit from being in part of Maya's world, like go ahead and share it. we
Yeah.
actually call it like the one person, one conversation at a time initiative, where it's just like in my mind, like this is the thing, where it's just like if the right person is able to pass this message to the next right person, like years later, like everyone continues to benefit. All right. So if we all could do that, that'd be the absolute world to me. Maya, we end each conversation off with your insights that you had from this conversation. So the only reason we have this is like this is part of how I change the world, you know.
Mm.
And so I like to like sit back and ask you like what's something that you're taking away from this conversation? What I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, actually, like what you just said, just stuck with or will stick with me. Just about like sharing it and kind of connecting the dots. I think a lot of what you've probably heard here is that it's about alignment. It's about like connecting with the right types of clients and types of people in your organization that are excited about similar things. And a lot of that is like in kind of intangible. So kind of the power of just connecting people when something resonates and even with us referring work on and you being so active in kind of creating community and then encouraging community to expand the community or expand just like the reach of each conversation or you know piece of advice or podcast or whatever. I think that's really powerful because it's it's just like a small manageable thing that can be really important.
I appreciate you. All right. Thank you for bringing that in, Maya. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing your time, your experience, with all of us here in your story. Outliers, until the next time we all talk, be you on purpose. Journey on.